you can only get there through hard ass work. This is like a world changing thing. This is the separation of money and state. You can't kill this thing. It's fucking amazing.
Welcome everyone to episode 56 of the Wake Up Podcast. And on this episode, I have UFC fighter and Bitcoiner and fucking all-round legend Kenny Florian joining me. We are exploring Bitcoin, truth, and reality through the lens of physical expression, or you might want to say like physical reality. We talk about life existing somewhere between science and art. We talk about chaos and order. We talk about Bruce Lee. We talk about what it means to be a monster, the importance of violence, and the capacity to do violence. And then also the definition of Meek as those who have swords, who know how to use them, but choose to keep them sheathed. It's a really important set of principles there, which I guess the best way to exemplify them is, you know, this saying, which is it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. We talk about sacrifice and its relationship to proof of work. We talk about Kenny's early career. We talk about how, you know, reality is getting punched in the face despite your plan. We talk about Kenny's journey into Bitcoin, climbing Mount Stupid, and, you know, realizing why Bitcoin and not shitcoin. We talk about the Remnant. And we talk about also a little bit about the archetype of the 2017, 2018 Bitcoiner and like why that's such a particular important archetype in the progression and evolution of Bitcoin. So this is a fantastic pod, and you'll see I'm starting to build a theme here of thinkers that aren't just in Bitcoin, but that come from different professions. And next week I'm going to have Nozomi Hayase on, and she's a liberation psychologist, but I'll leave that to next week, obviously. In the meantime, obviously subscribe, listen, share this around, and by the time this episode is out, the Bitcoin Times edition 4 is going to be available for download at bitcointimes.news, or if you're having trouble finding it, jump on Timeless Bitcoin, one word, on Twitter. You'll find it. Get in there. This edition has some fucking fantastic work from Brandon Quidden, from Alan Farrington, from Thomas Strolap, from myself, from Craig Warmke, and from Peter Senongi. So get in there, enjoy this episode, and I'll see you at episode 57. I gotta get this bottle called Shitcoin of Tears.
I'm drinking them as well. Delicious.
Anyway, where are we? So episode 56. Kenny, do you prefer me to call you Kenny or Kenneth? Or you don't give a fuck?
Kenny's great. Kenny's great.
Kenny's great. Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
Dude, thank you for jumping on this podcast with me. I know we were supposed to do it a little while ago, and then supposed to do it tomorrow, but here we are. We've brought the future into the present.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, bro. So, look, dude, let's open this discussion up with a quote that you've actually got on your Twitter thing, which is it says somewhere between science and art. So I'm curious, like, what the genesis of that quote is, what it means to you, and yeah, hit me.
Yeah, you know, I think I guess that's kind of where the truth lies, somewhere between those two things. Those are things that have always kind of that I guess that I've always been fascinated with. And, you know, as a martial artist for a long period, for the majority of my life, I feel like that has always been a balance for me. I think finding what are, you know, the truths, I guess, in fighting, in martial arts, and also integrating your art and your interpretation of those things. And I think that it's very easy to go one way or the other too much to the point of being ineffective. And I guess by that, I mean, sometimes you can get caught into the nitty gritty of thinking that you're looking for certain truths in let's say the science of fighting, for example, and then being so nitty gritty and so analytical that you get lost into the fact that fighting is very much fluid and there are no rules and it's chaotic, and to get caught up and expect certain things and to systematize too much, I think you lose a lot of the truths of what fighting is all about, and you become ineffective and rigid, and you can get lost in that process. I also think that if you're like, well, I'm going to ignore some of those things and I'm just gonna do my art, man, and I'm just gonna do whatever, then you also can be rendered ineffective as well. So finding that balance for me has always been an interesting thing, and you can get caught up sometimes going one way or the other. And I think that it's very applicable to life and what we're kind of experiencing now in a lot of ways. So
yeah, dude,
I think it's a good way to stay humble, and that it's the truth is elusive, and you're kind of always chasing it and looking for it and questioning and being present, being alive as much as possible.
Totally, dude. I couldn't agree more. It reminds me of a little while ago, I wrote this piece called Bitcoin Chaos and Order, and it was like it was inspired by Jordan Peterson's work, and the idea in there is, I say that like life actually occurs at the nexus of the two, and sort of if you look at science and art, in many ways that they are like chaos and order, like that they are, and that's where a lot of things emerge. As you were talking, one thing just popped to mind is I mean, a lot of Bruce Lee's work. So, as you said there, fighting is fluid, right? And he was I guess the poster child of saying, do not get stuck within a dogma of a particular fight, or a particular style, more so. And I know me growing up, I think you and I probably of similar-ish generation. You might be, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 years older than me,
probably.
Yeah, most likely.
Yeah.
But still, like we kind of grew up in the generation where you still had like the strong male archetypes of like your Bruce Lees or your Arnolds or your Van Dams and all that sort of shit.
Yeah,
and
totally.
that's sort of what I grew up watching and reading and aspiring to be. These days you don't fucking have any of that shit. These days fucking in the comic book Superman's a faggot now. Like he's kissing some. I was like, what the fuck is going on? So just on that note, Bruce Lee, like he was a big inspiration for me. I used to devour all of his work. Like what's is there something there for you as well?
Oh, absolutely.
Without getting cliche, because I know everyone fucking brings him up, right? But
no, totally. I remember when my brothers told me, I was old enough to understand, and I'd been watching Bruce Lee movies for a long time. And my brothers told me like, well, he's dead. You know that. And I was like, what? And like, I had no idea, that he had died several years, before. And I remember just like I just started crying. I was like, no, he's not dead. So he had a huge impact and influence in my life. Read a lot of his books, and used to do a lot of his training methods and stuff like that. Whether they were effective or not, I don't know. But certainly philosophically, he was so far ahead of every martial artist out there. And, it was almost like he was speaking a different language when he was talking about martial arts, because most martial arts, were so caught up in dogma and what was traditionally used that they couldn't even fathom something outside of their system, which of course is very similar to Bitcoin coming in and disrupting everything. And I can also relate to that with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I was doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the early 90s, I guess, mid 90s. And back then, I even myself, I remember my brother had called me. He's like, dude, there's this thing called the UFC. It's crazy. They get all these martial artists from all over the world and they fight each other to see who the best fighter is. And I was like, so who won? Some like jacked, like striker dude just knocking everybody out. Like, what? He's like, no, some like skinny Brazilian guy. He like grabs them and like takes them down on the ground and like gets them in these holes. And I was like, I remember being so disappointed. I was like, no, that's not the way it goes down. Like all these action movies that I've seen, all these martial art movies,
that's not what I started.
Supposed to get knocked out. Yeah, I was like, and then, you know, I saw it and I was like, wow, but I wasn't a fan at first. And then I saw it again and it was effective. And then I realized that I'm not the biggest guy. Maybe I could do that. And he was just, you know, he was doing something so different than what everyone else was doing. And there was this lack of acceptance by the other martial artists and martial arts styles. And people wanted to prove him wrong. And they not only did they get proven wrong, but they realized they actually had to join the system and they had to learn from it. They had to integrate it into their fighting skills in order to be effective. And of course, now you look in the mixed martial arts world or real fighting in general, there is nobody who can fight at a high level without learning Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or grappling skills. So, you know, it really turned the martial arts world upside down. And to me, that was so fascinating. So yeah, you know, I see a lot of similarities between that and Bitcoin and the current system and how, you know, people don't want to believe what they're seeing and don't want to accept something that's new. So
Indeed.
Anyways, interesting.
Yeah, it's the story of I guess it's a similar story all throughout history, right? It's the first people who, you know, perhaps chose to do math, for example, and, you know, they may have been ridiculed, or the first, like Galileo saying that, wait a minute, the earth actually goes around the sun, motherfucker, not the other way around.
Yeah, right.
And, you know, you got burnt at the stake initially, but this is sort of what I always say to people when they say, oh, you know, what if the government bans Bitcoin? And I just say, look, the government banning Bitcoin is about as effective as the government banning the letter A, you know, or the number 6. Like, good luck, right? You know, it's about as effective of jumping off a cliff and just pretending that there's no gravity until you fucking hit the bottom and you explode, right? Like, it's just,
yeah,
it's completely moronic. And this is the thing about truth, right? Like, that there is objective truths, and as much as you might not like it, you know, it reminds me of that what is it, the Randy Savage meme? It's like, you may not like it, but accept it, right? It's you know, like, Bitcoin is like energy money, like, it's pure money. It's the purest thing that we'll ever have with respect to this idea of, like, this metaphysical idea of money. And, you know, scream and shout all you want, but fucking gravity is going to exist, pal. Like, you know, and that's the thing. And it's the same with what you just mentioned about BJJ. It's like, yeah, I don't like it. You know, it's someone's grappling, but when you're in a fucking headlock and you get choked out, I don't care how much you like it.
Right.
Your skis.
Absolutely. And I think especially something in regards to a choke, it's like, yeah, it doesn't matter how tough you are at that point. It's like you stop the blood going to your brain and you go to sleep. There's no way around it. And I think what's so beautiful about Bitcoin is that it is, you know, that nexus between science and art. I mean, the fact that it was created and was able to solve so many different things that we've been experiencing, you know, clearly Satoshi was, you know, just next level genius as far as, you know, his knowledge and, you know, writing code and you know, understanding, you know, philosophy, economics, politics. I mean, it's just amazing. And the fact that it was able to be done without physical violence, you know, to change a system, or to even begin to do that, you know, it takes a kind of disruption that must be very beautifully subtle. It's almost like, you know, someone who was violently trying to punch you and you're just kind of deftly and easily avoiding the strikes and understanding that you are unkillable. You know, everything about it is just, it's amazing. And it was really built, I think, you know, in my, you know, very basic mind in regards to Bitcoin, it was built with, I think, a defense first attitude, which I think engineers and, you know, combat, you know, specialists in general, I think should approach it from that aspect anyway. It's like, how do I not die first? How do I make myself unkillable? And then let's get into how I'm going to kind of take care of you. And, you know, with that defense first mind, I find it just so fascinating. I mean, the fact that it's built up to the point now where it can defend itself against a nation state attack is just unbelievable. And all the other things about it and the layers of it is just mind-boggling.
The defense first thing is a very good like as you were describing that, I was thinking of like, the final scene in the Matrix when Neo is like, just blocking with one hand and he's like,
Yeah, exactly.
It's literally that. But the defense first thing is really interesting because I had one of the things I wanted to talk about here is this idea of like the meek shall inherit the earth, and Jordan Peterson's definition of the meek, which is those who have swords and know how to use them but choose to keep them sheathed. And it's like it's the idea of being I guess a warrior in a garden instead of a gardener in a fucking war, right? And I think a big part of and yeah, like a big part of what's wrong with the world today is that we've been taught that that violence and being a warrior, and being able to be assertive and aggressive and standing up for yourself is bad. It's been vilified. It's been framed as a vice. And a virtue, virtues have been kind of, sorry, the things that have been told to us are virtues are like passivity or complacence or compliance and all that sort of stuff. So what we've got is a world of, we don't have fucking conscious monsters, like people who have the ability to say fucking no. What we've got is a bunch of compliant sheep who think, oh, violence is bad. And, we're basically marching towards like these metaverse fucking gulags with VR headsets on and fucking headphones on with a smile on our face with 35 injections up our ass. Like it's fucking crazy. And this is sort of why, like, I have a deep respect for physical training, whether that is in the form of martial arts or, whether it's lifting or whether it's gymnastics or whether it's some sort of mastery of the body. I think this modern idea of like trying to separate the body from the mind and from the spirit is fucking complete madness. So anyway, there's a couple bits and pieces there. So, let's pick that apart and.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think that, it's important for people to understand suffering in a lot of ways, right? I think it's important to understand that it takes hard work to achieve something. And those things don't just happen overnight. And, especially in something, like, physical work, whether it's, developing yourself for a sport or a specific aim, you realize there's levels to the game. You look around and you see some of your peers or some of the people that are doing it at the highest level, and you realize, that's what I need to achieve, or that's where I need to go, or to understand, like, I want to go past that. Like, screw what Michael Jordan did. I want to do, twice as much as he did, or whatever it is. But there's levels of understanding, and you can only get there through hard ass work. And it's when you go up, similar to Bitcoin, right? It's like, it's not this straight line to success. It is never this straight line up. It's, more of a roller coaster ride. And I think you look at a lot of the organic life forms, it experiences that adversity and it either dies or it gets stronger. And if you don't know what that means, I think, I think that itself makes you weak. And I think that's what, you're kind of alluding to, is that, weak people are some of the most dangerous people in the world, especially when they have power. And, you look over time, like, what organization that you can think of that is looking to achieve power, that's like, we got you guys, we're going to take care of you, that have done it great, that have done a great job at that. I can't really think of that. Ultimately, humans in general, we can easily be corrupted. Like, everyone has that certain number in their head that, like, oh, well, I would never do that. You're like, well, what if I offer you this? Maybe I'll do that. So, I think you need to understand that about human nature. And I think, and in general, go back, about, doing physical hard work. I think it's humbling. And I think it gets you to realize that is the process to be successful in all things. It's just hard work.
Yeah, man. I guess that, like, I wrote here while you're speaking, is like sacrifice and its relationship to proof of work, right? Like proof of work fundamentally is the game of sacrificing energy up front for the potential of a reward, in pursuit of the strengthening or the validation or the securing of a network. Like
Right.
it's such a it's such a profound embodiment of just this natural principle of sacrifice, and and I think for me, as I've studied all sorts of different philosophies, like what one person that's obviously rung true for me, and I assume the same for you, but is Jordan Peterson's work, and it's not that his work is like entirely novel, but his I guess his way of articulating and his eloquence in doing so is just, it just rings so true. And for me, that's where I've really started to appreciate things like, the lessons that are taught in the Bible. For example, when I was younger, I grew up super religious, and then I swung the complete fucking opposite way. I was, atheist of the century, fuck everyone kind of thing.
Yeah.
I hated all that sort of stuff. And the older and more mature I've gotten, the more I've started to like appreciate. Like, it's funny. I came up with a model actually while I was talking to my girlfriend about this, and I said I kind of see religion as three parts. You've got the philosophy, which is like the core pure essence, for example, and let's just use Christianity as an example. So the
Mhm.
philosophy of Christ, pure signal, right? Then you have the next layer, which is the religion, and the religion is other people's interpretations of the philosophy. And in some ways that can be good, can be bad, can be whatever, but everyone's allowed to have an interpretation of a particular philosophy, and that's fine. But then where things really decay and corrupt is the institutionalization of the interpretation of the philosophy. And that is the church, right? Like, or the
Right.
organization that, believes it is the only one, whose, interpretation is right, and our dogma is this and that, and whatever the case is. And when people sort of point at, Christianity and say, oh, it's a fucking dumb idea, really what they're talking about is the institutionalization of the religion, of the philosophy. And if sort of you can get your way through to the essence, it's really beautiful. So don't know why I'm going on that tangent, but I think it was something to do with like this idea of sacrifice. It
Yeah.
permeates all of existence, right?
No question about it. And I think that's a great point about institutions as well. Is that, getting together and having this certain group of people that have this centralized power, I think it's in and of itself, it's corrupt. And it doesn't make the thing that they're talking about bad, but the institution itself is what is kind of the virus, if you will. And I think it was the same thing. If the sovereign individual talks about it, but when you go back in time, the church were really the holders of power. They were the ones who had all the power. They were the ones who had all the land. They're the ones who had all the gold, all the money, all those things. And over time, whether it's weapons or the printing press or all these things, the power started dissipating and started to spread out to the people as they become more knowledgeable, and they started arming themselves and all those things. And you see a similar kind of decoupling now with the internet and the government, and I think it's fascinating to be a part of it, and I think we're still in the earlier stages of it. And I think Bitcoin is kind of
Totally.
that next frontier.
It really is. It really is. So to flip this back to sort of your experience as a martial artist, can you talk me a little bit through, you know, early career, or maybe not even early career, but sort of early inspiration? Like what took you down the path? Because what I'm going to try and do towards the latter part of the conversation is try and tie those early principles to your path down, I guess, the Bitcoin rabbit hole. So
Cool.
I'm really interested in those like principles, because specific archetypes of people get Bitcoin, and I find there's a reason why.
Awesome. Yeah, so I was always fascinated with the martial arts. My dad is a physician, but he also did judo, through high school, all the way through college and medical school, and wanted us all to learn how to defend ourselves. I'm one of six, so I had 4 brothers, 1 sister. So pretty big family. They ended up, my parents are from Peru originally, moved to the United States in the late 60s. And so, growing up, loving martial arts movies, doing some martial arts, being involved in a ton of sports. I kind of felt a religious connection to martial arts for whatever reason. I felt like that was the only thing that was happening in the world when I was practicing martial arts. And I played soccer in college and all that stuff, and I loved it. But there was something different about martial arts, and there was this spirituality that really was enticing to me. And I was able to reconnect with the martial arts in college and started practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I just became obsessed with it. I used to have dreams of fighting, and I was incredibly ineffective. I would punch this person, whoever it was that was opposing me, and nothing would happen. And I would be so pissed. I'm like, dude, what is going on? And I always had this fear of like, what would happen if I got into a real fight? Like, and I had been in certain fights and things like that growing up as a kid, in Boston, but it was different, it was not like a real fight. So as I became more obsessed with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and with martial arts, after I graduated from college, I said, I just want to have one mixed martial arts fight. Like, what would happen if I got in there with an other trained martial artist who was like training to beat me up? Like, how would I actually do? Mm-hmm. And I had won my first fight. I won my second fight. And I just kept kind of, all right, I just want to do one more, just one more. And ultimately, I was offered a spot on the first season of The Ultimate Fighter, where 16 crazy dudes lived in a house and basically fought to try to make it into the UFC. I was a lot younger at the time and really curious about that process. I was like, let's see what happens. And I really wasn't like trying to be a professional mixed martial arts fighter. I was just like, let's see how this goes. I really did it as more of a test to myself, but this was a different level. Like, these are dudes who actually wanted to be a professional fighter. But over time, as I was like on this show, I was like, wait a second, I can kind of hang with these guys. And they were like 2 or 3 weight classes above my weight. I was the least experienced dude. And somehow I ended up making it to the finals, got my ass kicked horribly in the final, just completely humiliated in the final of The Ultimate Fighter. And I made it about, I started thinking about like, this is for a big contract. I can make more money if I do this. All my friends and family are watching. Like, this is the biggest crowd I've ever fought in front of. I was focused on all these things that really didn't matter. I forgot why I was there. And it was to test myself. It was to test my martial arts skills. And I forgot about that. So I realized I had a lot of maturing to do. And I had a lot of training to do, and I had a lot of hard work to do. I had to continue to develop my mind, especially because I felt that I succumbed to that fear at that point. And it became this lifelong process of getting better at my craft. And I was lucky enough to fight for 3 world titles in 2 different weight classes, and never won the world championship in the UFC. Never was a UFC world champion, but I fought, to get there, and I was very close. But and I fought in like 4 different weight classes in the UFC, and loved the challenges of doing that. And then that kind of led to other opportunities for commentary and TV work, and still training martial arts to this day. And what I loved about it is that there is no bullshit in fighting. You will find out where your weaknesses are. You will find out certain truths about yourself, and you will ask the hard questions. Otherwise, you will see that it either was enough or not. And of course, there's a lot of different factors that go into winning and losing. But as far as the development of my martial arts skill, there was nothing better than competing and testing yourself against the best fighters in the world. And it was an amazing process, and one that I'm still a part of today.
As you were mentioning that last part, it reminds me of the quote. It's everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. It's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
yeah, like martial
Exactly.
art, like it's practice over theory, right? Like you get in
Yes.
there, as you said, with someone who wants to kick your fucking ass, and you find out whether what you thought was real was actually real or not. And it's similar in business actually. It's so I've been an entrepreneur basically all my life since I dropped out of university at like 19 or 20 or whatever. And man, I think in total, not I think, I know in total that I've fucked up way more times than I actually succeeded. But each time, like, my hypothesis, like I would go out with some idea or some thought or something, and think this is a fucking great idea. And the market feedback was, no, you're an idiot. This is a really dumb idea. And then, I spend
Right.
3, 4, 5 years working for nothing, and start again and rebuild again, etc. But it's just those principles that are there across, you know, fighting, across entrepreneurialism, across building wealth, across,
Absolutely.
relationship, health, like all of these things, require um, basically getting in touch with reality. And it's just, again, it sounds like common sense, but it's like when you look around at the world around us, it's like that shit doesn't exist anymore.
Absolutely. Well, it's easy to get down on yourself and be like, oh, I suck. I'm not cut out for this. I'm done. Or, the world is against me or whatever it is, where it's like, no, just listen, pay attention. What's going on? Okay. Now, how do you adjust? How do you make it better? And, almost like taking yourself out of the picture and just learning from your mistakes. And I think for a lot of people, it's hard for them to do that. I think it's hard for people to, take those knocks and not learn from them. But I don't know.
Totally. So let's see if we can tie some of this back into Bitcoin then. So tell me about your journey into Bitcoin. Like when did you first
Yeah.
come across this crazy shit? Like and what was your path like?
So I remember I was in Los Angeles. I was with my buddy, and he was telling me about. He's like, "Hey, there's this thing called Bitcoin." He's like, "Dude, you should really get some. It just went down to like $75. Like you need to you need to get involved." And I was like, "Really?" I was like, "Wow, okay. So like, what is it?" And he's explaining it to me. And I was like, okay, interesting. All right, yeah, maybe, man. Like it was like one of those things, and I like kind of like, and then I really started thinking about it, and I like discussing things for a long time and kind of like breaking it down and like getting feedback and then going back to myself and like thinking about it and then doing it again. So it usually takes me a little while to jump. And I was going to do it, and of course I didn't because I'm an idiot. But I ended up I didn't buy until like I think 2000 end of 2016 or 2017. So it's still obviously a lot much cheaper than it is today. But yeah, and I actually I got involved. I bought mostly Ethereum because again I'm an idiot. I was like, it's cheaper, so I'm just gonna get that. And I was lucky enough that I made some money off it. And then once I realized what was going on, I sold everything and put it all into Bitcoin. And basically I've been buying Bitcoin since 2017. So,
yeah, okay.
Up until this week. So it's like,
yeah, absolutely.
It's been a wild journey, man.
So what was, so I call, so in my early days as well, very similar story.
Yeah.
The first time I heard about Bitcoin, I think it was Max Kaiser or someone jumping up and down on a fucking couch, and I was like, yeah, whatever, I'll stick with my gold and silver, right? And then yeah, like idiot. And then you come back later and you realize that there's something more here. But then, I also did my little climbing of Mount Stupid, like I bought a bunch of Ethereum, bought a bunch of shitcoins.
I think you need to. You need to. Yeah. Yeah, me too.
I always say, like, the question is like, if you climb Mount Stupid, the question is not, did you do it? It's like, how quickly did you come back down, right? Like, some people spend their entire fucking life up on Mount Stupid, and they're too stupid to actually fucking realize, and they're gonna end up freezing and dying up there. So for you, like, what was the thing that helped you climb back down? It was like, what was the thing that dawned on you that, it's Bitcoin, not shitcoin? basically? Do you remember?
Well, a couple things, and really stupid, simple things that I don't know in my mind made sense back then. Yeah, a couple things. First of all, it was like I started realizing, well, why is Bitcoin valuable? Why is Bitcoin worth more than the other shit coins? Like I started thinking about that. I'm like, all right, well, there's a reason for it. So that was like that, just a little simple thing where I was like, huh, okay, well, maybe that is the thing. And then, just the fact that it was scarce, the fact that it was limited, the fact that it was truly decentralized. Those are the things that were most enticing to me, that brought me into it, and that that kept ringing in my head. And since then, so those are kind of the two main things. And then, since then, it's just been, I just gone deeper and deeper and deeper. How this is like this is like a world changing thing. This is the separation of money and state. We've never ever had this, and yeah, so it has spread itself out in all parts of how I think and see things, as I'm sure you know. So yeah, it's been wild, man. But it's like, it's a credit to people like you and to the Bitcoin community who are spreading the word about it. It's like we have access to this amazing information, and over the last, I've learned more over the last year and a half than I had in the years that I owned Bitcoin before. So it's been amazing.
Yeah, to that point, actually. So I appreciate the comment there, but like to that point, I think the class of 2017, 2018, like that class of Bitcoiners, to my mind, has been the most, I guess it's been the rise of Bitcoin philosophy in many ways, right? It's like you've had the GGs of the world, and like the Breed Loves and this and that. It's like we kind of all emerged, and I was trying to pinpoint a reason. I was on a Twitter Spaces like a couple of weeks ago, and I was trying to say, why is it that kind of happened at that point in time? And what I kind of came up with was this idea that Bitcoin was still cheap enough to acquire a bit, like to become a multi-coiner, maybe even a deca-coiner, right? But expensive enough such that we really had to fucking work to get multiple Bitcoin. Whereas the previous classes, like, the class of 2013 or the class of particularly even 2011, a lot of those motherfuckers just got lucky. Literally, like, some of those motherfuckers were dumb as dog shit, like Roger Ver, for example, tripped over, fell into 100,000 coins or whatever he's got, and can't fucking wipe his ass properly. Like, it's just really fucking weird. Or they got their Bitcoin derangement syndrome and wanted to run the show. Like, it's just a very interesting archetype, and that's something I just sort of found. It's like our little class of 2017, 2018 not only like are the most rabid, like intolerant, toxic maximalists, right? It's like, fuck you, it's all shitcoin other than Bitcoin. But they're also the most philosophical. Like, the best memes, the best work, the best content, and everything has sort of come out of this generation. And I don't think we're going to have that again, honestly. I think we're really lucky.
We were in that happy medium zone. Like, I think about a couple things, right? It's like, it was not cheap. Like, we didn't get Bitcoin, like each Bitcoin for cents. You know what I mean? Like, there are people who bought Bitcoin at 25 cents. Like, one of my students in LA, when I had my gym over there, he said he was mining Bitcoin, and he's like, I'm an idiot. He's like, I was one of those dudes who was buying pizza with Bitcoin because I didn't know. Like, you almost don't have an appreciation for it. It's like when you spent your freaking hard-earned money for it, where it was like, this isn't just like an easy purchase where you're like, I don't care, it's just like $10. Like, what? You had to invest in it, and it wasn't cheap. And so you did your due diligence. You wanted to understand it. You followed it. And it was way more of a freaking risk back then than it is now. That's what I tell people all the time. Like, I don't know, man, this seems pretty risky. I was like, no, man, like, it was risky several years ago. Like, we're past that. Like,
yeah, we won.
No,
yeah.
Like, yeah, you know what I mean? So I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think it's what you just said there. It echoes what we were talking earlier about sacrifice, right? It's like you really have to like, I think our generation of Bitcoiners, it's funny, I call it our generation, like there's short generations of 4-year cycles, right? But like we genuinely, like, going all in at Bitcoin at $1,000 is like, you know, it was a risky fucking thing. Like, I mean,
Yeah, man.
credit to the, I mean, obviously there is exceptions to the norm. So, you know, you have your Pierre Rochards and like, you know, your Michael Goldstein. Those motherfuckers
Sure.
went all in at like $200, but they got it the same way as we got it at 2017, right?
Right.
And
Right.
and power to them, right? Like that shit's fucking incredible. But that's like few and far between. Like most of the people who got into Bitcoin around like 2012, 2013, they became shitcoiners basically. They went and just printed their own thing because they couldn't exert their influence over Bitcoin.
Right. And also, we experienced those, like, I mean, I experienced it, like the heart attack moments where you're like, shit, dude, I just bought the top at 14,000 or at like 8,000 or 7,000. Like you're buying all these tops and you see it go down. You're like, oh my God, is this the end? Is it really over? And then you see it climb back up. And I think seeing that kind of strength, it's almost like Bitcoin is this entity that you kind of like has become this superhero in your mind. You're like,
Rocky
dude,
fucking
it's
Balboa.
unstoppable. Yeah, dude, you can't kill this thing. It's fucking amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Fucking every time you knock the fucker down, you're like, he's up again.
All
Shit.
right, he's up. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay, so on that note, so then archetypes of people who are like that. So I remember you, I think you where I first actually came across you was, I think you tweeted one of my things from the Remnant piece.
Yes.
And I know that, yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Like so many people that article like rubbed a bunch of people the wrong way, which I'm very glad that it did. And then it obviously resonated with a bunch of other people. So just before we actually started this call, I'm writing the second piece, which is called The Remnant, the Parasite, and the Masses. And it's more of a psychological exploration about the three archetypes, because I didn't do that in the last one. In the last one, I talked more about like the remnant and the masses, but I thought, fuck, there's actually a third archetype. There's this kind of element in the middle, which represents like the bureaucrats or the statists, you know, those kind of people who are like, they're either failed remnants or they're jealous members of the masses, right? It's like one of the two. And their goal is to kind of leech from the producers, the prime movers, and to weaponize the lemmings and the sheeple against the you know, the remnant or the prime movers, and they just sort of like extract value from the system. And I guess they're the ones who are obviously most threatened by Bitcoin, because the archetype of the remnant is going to be the one that not only sets the standard but benefits the most from something like Bitcoin, because Bitcoin fundamentally rewards merit. Like it is a fucking brutal, hardcore, real meritocracy. It's getting in the fucking ring and getting punched in the face if you've got the wrong opinion. The masses are going to benefit because it's like, you know, puts everyone on a level playing field, you know, and for them, like whatever, like that, like I kind of said in the article, they'll be happy whether they're walking into fucking gulags or if they're working on a Bitcoin standard. They don't know the difference. Right. But the parasites, they can't fucking feed, you know, on the remnant on a Bitcoin standard. And for them, it's fucking scary as hell. Like their source of nutrition is about to be fucking chopped off and they're freaking the fuck out. Like, you know, that tweet I made the other day where all their faces are melting, right? Like they're all fucking, you know, they're scared and I love it. But talk to me about maybe that idea of the remnant and why that resonated with you in particular.
I think about how most people can't be right about a certain thing. Like I think like if you're doing what other, like the majority of people aren't at a certain stage, like you're probably doing it right to a certain extent. Like, I don't know, like I look at, I've been able to identify some things. I don't know if I have many talents, but one of the talents I think I may have is just identifying some of the things that are different from what other people are doing and being like, I don't think people realize how cool that is, or like how special that is and how powerful that is. And being a part of that movement, I think is super special for me. But I think, yeah, I don't know. I think most people, you know, also just get caught in their modes of thinking and cannot break out of it. That is something that has always been so fascinating for me. And I always try to be aware of it myself, and question myself and ask myself, like, all right, what is this? What is going on? Is this the right thing? Blah, blah, blah. And I think you have to constantly go through that process. But yeah, so I think there's that, like, people stick to the known. We are creatures of habit and we don't like change. And I also think that, we've been caught up in that thing. It doesn't matter what you know, it's who you know. And, that little exclusive group of people don't want to give up that power and don't want to give up that information. And it's always been an information game. Everything is an information game. It's like, who has the information? How do you get it? And I feel like Bitcoiners are so far ahead of the game. And as far as, the kind of work that they've done and what we've learned from Satoshi and, the Bitcoin network and what it's doing and what it can do. And I feel like, when you see that kind of truth and you see what has been done and see how it's exploited, I don't understand how Bitcoin doesn't have the brightest of futures. So I don't know if I'm answering your question. Sorry, I've been all over the place, but
no, it's, we are. So that kind of leads me into what I wanted. One of the things I wanted to ask you is, like, there seems to be this this movement towards Bitcoin, or I don't know if this is an accurate observation or not, but sports people like yourself and obviously Russell Okung, and then there's Tom Brady, there's that I'm not super big into sports these days, but there was this other guy like Aaron whatever from the NFL who gave away $1 million worth of Bitcoin recently.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers, that's it. Yeah. So there's there seems to be this sort of movement towards Bitcoin, and what I have noticed is that sports people, in particular, like the more elite sports people, right? They're sort of migrating or talking about Bitcoin in a particular way, and I don't see the same with shitcoins. So I wonder if there's some sort of, do you think there's a sort of a thread there where people are viscerally getting it, kind of like you have, like, and that the grounding in sports or the grounding in athletics is a part of that?
I guess, and I certainly feel like I have way more to learn about Bitcoin, but I do feel that, and I'm not trying to do this to pat myself on the back or whatever, but like athletics in general, to reach a high level in athletics, it takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of suffering. It takes a lot of training when nobody is looking and no one is appreciating anything. And like one day you kind of like, you have your special performance and it clicks and everyone's like, oh, I want to pay that dude a lot of money to do what he does. And everyone's like, he became an overnight success. You're like, motherfucker, I've been doing this since I was 2 years old, or I've been doing this since I was 4 or 6. Like, I was shit for like 8 years. And now, so it's that empowerment. It's that empowerment that you get through athletics or through physical work. And I think that you realize, like, well, wow, like I need to start believing in myself a little bit more and like have confidence and invest in myself and bet on the things that I think is worth my time. And I think that similar to that, getting into it back in 2017, and I'm, obviously a bunch of people got in before me or whatever, but like, I've seen how it's grown, and having seen that kind of growth and having that faith in that, like, more and more and more, I think that, I don't know, it just strengthens, your aims and your focus and all of that. And it's very similar to, I think, my approach anyway, to how I took on with martial arts. And I don't know if,
do you in the sort of in the martial arts space, or particularly in the UFC segment of the martial arts space, have you, because you're in it, have you seen like a bit of a movement towards Bitcoin, or do you think it's still kind of nascent, like it's not there?
I think so. I definitely think so. And also, to kind of go back to what you were talking about, because I was all over the place again, I think that, there is that I think for most martial artists, for most people that are involved in combat to a certain extent, I think they realize the value of freedom. They realize the value of being able to defend yourself or fend for yourself or do things for yourself. And I think ultimately Bitcoin is about freedom. And I think that's what makes it, again, so damn powerful. But yeah, to answer your question, I do see it. I think that more and more people are realizing that shit, like I'm busting my ass. I could get injured tomorrow and never compete in my sport again. How do I get the most for my time? How do I make the most amount of money right now? How do I invest in my future? You're not getting that in a savings account anymore. That is not possible. And for a lot of people, like, you live up to your means. So people are like, oh, like, well, that dude's made millions of dollars. It's like, yeah, so did fucking MC Hammer and Mike Tyson, and they lost it all because they're like spending on ridiculous shit. So it's like living up to that level and not being smart about your money or not understanding the value of that. It can go away tomorrow. You can be, drinking the wine today and squeezing the grapes tomorrow. And I feel like Bitcoin allows for more freedom on a time level as well. I have a family now. I have all of these things that I want to do, and a lot of it includes spending time with the people that I love and doing the things that I love. Thankfully, some of those things involve me making money, but for a lot of people that's not the case. So it's like, people are funny, like on Bitcoin, like people who hit me up about it, fighters who ask me about it, they're like, well, what is this thing? What is this? Why is it important? Or why should I have some? Or I bought a little, what do you think about it? And, I tell them it's like the most important thing they could do for themselves, and I truly believe that. Like, people think that like someone putting 100,000 or $10 million into Bitcoin like affects my price. Like, I don't give a shit. That's not going to affect the price. Like, I don't care about that. I truly don't. Like, I know where it's headed. I know it's going to go up. But like, it comes down to people really thinking about their future and thinking about the time that they put into things and maximizing that. That's what we're here for. We could die tomorrow. We could, our careers could end tomorrow. We could be paralyzed. Like, there's so much shit that can happen. How do you, give yourself the best future? And that's just what I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's like it creates certainty in it for an uncertain future, because fundamentally the future is uncertain. So how do you find a way to create some sort of certainty long term? And I think that's actually one of the real cancers of the fiat system, is that it makes the future so uncertain. And when the future is naturally uncertain, but when you create a bunch more uncertainty in it, you then can't make decisions long term. And when you can't make decisions long term, then you're forced to only make short-term decisions. And when you make short-term decisions all the time, you sacrifice the long term and you fuck it up. And that's what we're in, this like real downward spiral in the world of like everything is fucking short term. We make shit just to waste it.
Right.
Fucking like yesterday, I lost my mind yesterday. I've never been in America during Black Friday sales. I just literally wanted to go to the I just wanted to go to the shops to buy a fucking cap. Like, I forgot my cap at the airport, and like I rocked up and like I was like, what the fuck is going on? There's a lineup of parking to get in first. That was a fucking nightmare. But then when I got out, like I was like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? And like, dude, it's wild. But that's just an example of like rampant like short-term consumerist thinking. It's like the whole fucking the time preference of all of society has been so distorted that we've basically got fucking lemmings on one side just running around trying to save $5 on a shirt they can't even fucking fit into because they're too fat this year because they just ate more chocolate cake. And then, on the other side, you got fucking parasites just squeezing those of us that are productive for everything that we're worth by, inflating the money, taxing us, stupid fucking mandates, borrowing from a future indefinitely that they'll never fucking pay. Like, it's just insane, bro.
Well, I think, a lot of this is just it's really backed by fear. Like there's so much damn fear in the world, and I think a lot of that has to do with people don't know who they are. People don't know what they're capable or of, or there's just a lot of people that are you know afraid in general, based on their environment or how they grew up, and they've never looked into that and tried to face that head on. And I think that is kind of what's going on. That's why people are freaking out, and they're just like, have someone else handle it. Let the government will take care of it, or this group will take care of it.
Yeah,
I don't want to deal with it. It's like, no, dude, if you look at history and how that has gone down, it never goes down well. And they're telling you things that are just not true. And it's been a fascinating process. And yeah, I'm curious to see how it all goes down, man. But it's a much better world with Bitcoin in it, and I think it offers up hope, and it offers up way more optimism overall for me, anyway.
Well, the way I kind of find peace is that if this is the price we need to pay to transition onto a Bitcoin standard, I'm willing to pay the price of, being an observer of the fucking clown world simulation, basically, because that's what we're like. It's like, so if someone came to us and said, 30, 40 years ago, and said, look, in order to move onto a Bitcoin standard such that the world, the collective human action of all individuals on the planet is rooted in the second law of thermodynamics, such that we can truly progress and compound and live in a meritocracy, you're going to have to live through 2 decades of the clown world simulation, where up is down, fucking left is right, where a man is a woman and a fucking woman is a man, and God knows what other stupidity you got to put through. It's like, would you do it? As painful as it is, I think this is probably our generation's sacrifice. Like, when I think long term about like not just the classes of Bitcoin, but kind of the generations that'll have Bitcoin, I view us as basically the founding fathers. Like the next 10 years of Bitcoin is going to be the transition phase, and the transition phase is going to be the clown world of clown world of clown world fucking simulations, where the dumbest possible shit you can imagine is going to happen. But on the other side of that, we'll have like light at the end of the tunnel, and our children are going to get an opportunity to build the foundation, and they're going to have to build from the fucking rubble. Like we've got to try and keep as much of the shit together as possible. We've got to build the Noah's Ark, and then our children are going to get to kind of land the Noah's Ark on a new piece of land, and they're going to build the sort of foundation, and then their children are actually going to fucking go to the moon, basically. Like that's the right progression. So in many ways, like we drew the short straw. We're going to have to deal with all the fuckwits, but we're also, I guess, lucky enough to be the most, the biggest wealth transition, the biggest like monumental historical transition in the way human beings operate is now. And for me, that is like, I'm willing to pay the fucking price for that shit.
Absolutely. And I think anything great is going to take that sacrifice. Is going to take a certain amount of suffering, and that's I think what makes it so much more different than investing in a stock to like make money or whatever. It's like like no, this is like a world-changing thing in general. And I think I truly believe it's going to be one of those things that makes the world a better place. Do I think there's going to be no disruptions up to that point? No, I'm expecting this, and we're already seeing it. We have seen it, but I think at this point it's too big to fail. And game theory is indicating that more and more people are going to be forced to be a part of it, and it's amazing to witness.
Yeah, man, the risk has changed. I actually, funny enough, speaking of sports people, there's an AFL guy who's been in Bitcoin for a little while in Australia, and we had a podcast back in November last year, and it was just, he was asking me, I was like, oh, do you think this is gonna happen? And I was like, man, we are on the fucking cusp of another bull run. And he's like, how can you be so sure? I was like, just watch. And one of the things we mentioned was exactly what you just said there, that the game theory shift is like, we're transitioning from it's risky to be in Bitcoin to it's risky to not be in Bitcoin.
And not be
and
in
it's like, and that shift fucking changes everything. Holy shit. Like, and I think we're just we're on the cusp of that right now. Like in the next, man, could be 6 months, could be 12 months, whatever. But as that thing shifts, people need to have their fucking brown pants on. I don't think anyone's actually seen what a Bitcoin bull run is going to be. Like when we've got
Yeah.
$100,000 green dildo candles in a day, like people freak the fuck out. I'm serious, man.
I love it, and I believe you. I couldn't agree more, dude. I think this is still the beginning. Like, obviously, the first big, moment, I think like 100 billion was like a big step. 500 billion was like, that's pretty big. A trillion, obviously, real big, but still, we're in the early stages. Like this is just the beginning, man. Like we're not even, what. We need to eat gold. Like once we're at that kind of level of like the value of gold, which is whatever, like, 7 to 9 trillion or something like that, which is like inevitable in my mind. It's just, you get a fraction of what's in bonds right now. There's so much room to grow. And I think,
let me blow your
agree.
mind. Let me blow your mind with one heuristic, which you're going to fucking love. Okay. Is the real bull market doesn't start until we reach cent to sat parity, right? Because this is what will happen when we stop measuring the Bitcoin chart. Like when we're measuring sats and we look at it and it's like, okay, Bitcoin's at one sat is worth 1 cent,
right?
And when that 1 sat moves from 1 cent to 2 cents, I guarantee you sometime this decade that's going to happen. It'll move from 1 cent to 2 cents. Think about what happened on the back end.
Shit.
How big's that candle?
That's insane.
That's $1 million candle. That's $1 million candle in one fucking day. That's when we see a bull run. I guarantee you is not when Bitcoin moves, 50 grand, 100 grand or whatever. It's when 1 sat moves from 1 cent to 2 cents. That's the bull run. That's the part of the S curve. Because at the moment we're still at the very fucking bottom of the shit. When that S curve really moves is, Bitcoin will go from 1 million to 2 million, 5, 10, 15, 20 million inside maybe a month or two. Like that's how fucking big it'll be. So anyway,
that's awesome. I love it.
That's the bull run shit. So okay, we got to wrap this shit up. So 2 final questions. One, what's your elevator pitch to an athlete or someone from the UFC or something like that about Bitcoin? Do you have one, or do you not even bother anymore? Like, if you do, what's the elevator pitch?
Geez, I guess I'd just say, I've just been kind of saying the world gets cheaper in Bitcoin. It's that simple. That
Nice.
what are you doing right now? You look at the inflation rate and what's going on, and the fact that you don't really own anything. You don't really own the money that you have. I think that's the most important thing, is that like Bitcoin's probably the only truth and the only thing that you truly own that can't be fucked with.
Nice.
I guess. I don't know.
Okay. So then, as an extension to that, have you used that on Joe Rogan yet, or not?
I haven't. I know. I haven't spoken to Joe in a little while, so I think that's we got to get some Bitcoiner on Rogan at some point. Like
we got to do
I know.
We got to do a round table.
Antonopoulos has been on there, but that was like a long time ago. We need a round table would be awesome. We just surround Joe. Yeah,
that's it. Don't let him fucking go until just fucking put him in a fucking headlock.
Exactly, because he's everything he talks about. It's like it's there, So yeah.
All right, line it up. That's your mission if you choose to accept it.
Got it.
All right, brother. Look, thank you so much for taking the time out for this, man. Really appreciate it. It was a really good chat. I think people are gonna get a lot from, particularly the idea of like the physical nature of fighting and being a monster, and like what that means in relationship to Bitcoin. Because fuck, man, we need more men in the world, and we need more fucking strength and aggression. We need more of the capacity to like, honestly, to fucking fight, because we're surrounded
now
by
more
pussies,
than ever,
man.
Now more than ever. I appreciate it, brother. Thanks so much for having me, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Absolutely. Where can people find you before we kill this one, so that way
man,
they can follow you?
at Kenny Florian on Twitter. I am for those that are inclined to learn about martial arts. I'm coming out with a martial arts course soon at Kenny Florian martialarts.com and kennyflorian.com. And that's pretty much it. I'll be doing commentary for the PFL on ESPN next year and on BattleBots on Discovery Channel coming up, I think, next year as well, early next year. But anyways, that's it. Thank you.
Legend.
Appreciate
All right, brother. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, man. All right. Good shit.